repaso que hemos hecho al posible futuro institucional de la Unión después de las elecciones, tenemos ahora otro tema apasionante bajo un título que han puesto muy kaplaniano: la venganza de la geopolítica en el este, lecciones aprendidas de la crisis de Ucrania y opciones para la política exterior y de seguridad de la Unión. Contrariamente a lo que Kaplan sugiere en su venganza de la geografía, en donde atribuye un determinismo importante del factor geográfico en la política, creo que la realidad de hoy en día nos lleva a luchar contra ese determinismo. Pero bueno, vamos a ver lo que nuestros ponentes opinan hoy de hacia dónde va la política de la Unión Europea y la política de Europa y por tanto del mundo en general. Para eso tenemos un plantel de sección en donde combinamos la opinión del lado público, la opinión de los ministerios, como se dice en el seminario, las dos visiones de Polonia y de España. Tenemos por el lado polaco al señor Jarosław Bratkiewicz, perdón por mi pronunciación, director político del Ministerio de Asuntos Exteriores de Polonia, y por el lado español a Ignacio Ybáñez Rubio, que es director general de Política Exterior y de Asuntos Multilaterales, Globales y de Seguridad. Y por el lado de la sociedad civil, de los chicas, tenemos a Elina de CIDOB y a Borja Lasheras de CIDOB. Sin más dilación, voy a darles la palabra. Van a dar cada uno de ellos entre 7 y 10 minutos para que luego tengamos tiempo de discutir en la mesa y de recoger también sus preguntas. Le doy la palabra a por favor.
Thank you very much. And well, if anybody has to deal with the problem of if anybody has to deal with the problem of the Eastern Partnership, we have to skip that for just for a couple of months, for just when there was a time of preparations for the Viilup summit, which was expected as a triumphant event, which had to crown this long, laborious process of establishing, of negotiating AADCFTA and thus establishing a new set of channels of communication and collaboration with the three Eastern partners. And so just from today's perspective, I may say how much history did overtake our expectations, our I would say passive inertia, like awaiting for this success that was expected to cruise to this, I would say, victory of the Viilup summit. Just those who come to Brussels, every time, just at least me, I have a sense of the fact Fukuyama was right. The history has ended, and just everything moves according to the national plans, and there is a current of history that inevitably brings us to the positive outcomes. Just we may ask, why did it happen? Just I believe that the failure of the fact that Ukraine didn't sign the AADCFTA was a result of the coinciding tendency from both parties. From the one hand, I may say that the leader of Ukraine represented the most vivid, the most blatant case of the post-Soviet type of political culture, political mindset, which very often supersedes strategic outlook with tactical skillfulness. By saying this, I mean that tactics is considered as a manifestation of the upper tier of the political capabilities, which is identified with the Himalayas of the political wisdom. So, in this respect, Yanukovych was maneuvering between Brussels and Moscow. He was aware that on the side of Moscow entity, the second factor was there was a growing opposition, there was an incremental opposition towards the contingency of signing by 3 post-Soviet states, signing AADCFTA by 3 post-Soviet states. This accruing Russian opposition vis-à-vis AADCFTA was driven by two complementary motivations. The first one, I believe, was of the minor importance, because that the DCFTA especially could jeopardize the basic Russian interests which are manifested, which are capsulized in all these bilateral treaties between Russia and post-Soviet states. The DCFTA, which is a kind of a political or economic wedge that might undermine the Russian, I would say, basic interests. But I believe that there was a second reason that was probably more important, that the Kremlin was afraid that AADCFTA, which could encompass the economic organism of Ukraine by the nexus of de facto European type of economy. Just DCFTA is a very solid package of acquis communautaire, which really may suck Ukrainian economy, Ukrainian post-Soviet economy into the blood circulation of the European economy. And for Putin, it purported the fact that it might jeopardize not only the Russian economic interest, but also bedevil the grand project of Russia, the project of Euro-Asiatic Union. And I believe that it was a genuine tip-off of the further Russian behavior. We know that when Yanukovych declined refused signing AADCFTA, no doubt that there was a sense of good humor, of good temper in Moscow. Just the decision was welcomed by the Russian authorities, and it looked as if Russia was a winning party in this scheme. But after that protests, the tide of protests surged, and the Russian authorities were very much, say, perplexed by these rampant tendency of protests in Ukraine. What was to be done? Initially, Yanukovych probably it was quite likely that he was very often consulted by Moscow, decided to wait until the people are somehow dispersed, are quelled by the winter time, by the lack of the hope. But it didn't happen. So Yanukovych decided to resort to some more militant, more strident measures, and without discussing this, I may say it really made an eruption of on the one hand, anti-Russian sentiments, and on the other hand, the overwhelming understanding among those who were opting for the European prospects for Ukraine, that Yanukovych wasn't just the right guy, the right politician on the right place. I remember that when I was accompanying 3 ministers who came in Kiev, just in the wake of the first bloodshed, they came both to contribute in forging some grand compromise, and eventually they outreached this goal. I have to say that that when they came, they were met with another bloodbath in the streets of Kiev. But regardless of that, they were able to make both parties, bearing in mind the fact that the people of Maidan were very much outraged, were infuriated with this massacre that had taken place a day before. Nonetheless, the compromise was done, and it's a normal, psychopolitical mood that we were almost sure that it would go along the line of the Polish Grand Compromise of 1989, that it would, so to say, mimic or copy our experience. It didn't happen. It didn't happen just because in a couple of hours after ministers were back to their capital cities, when we landed, I remember in Warsaw, we received information that Yanukovych had evaporated, that he had disappeared. So it meant that from the very outset, he wasn't inclined to collaborate with his political opponents in building this I would say, structure of the political compromise. And it was inevitable that the winner takes the full stake, and to some extent it wasn't the right choice, but the opposition was bestowed by all this power. We have to remember that all these developments could be entrenched into the logic of tug of war between opposition and the West, which manifested its empathy toward the Maidan, and Moscow on the other. A genuine tug of war with all these sways, these oscillations. Sometimes it seemed that we deemed that Russia was the winner. Then on the 21st of February, we were about to bet that now everything goes to the right direction. Putin was, we may speculate, but it was quite likely that he was extremely outraged and infuriated with these developments. If you play this game, and sometimes the full-fledged victories, it seems to be within your outreach. Obviously, if you feel that you are about to fail, you become intransigent. You can't see the contingent failure. And I believe that without discussing this very basic issue of the system of power in Russia, I may simply underscore this subjective element of the personality and psychology of the leader, who probably was a spiritus movens of the very significant shifts in the Russian politics. What are the basic shifts? First, we may say that Russia opted for the new civilizational choice by accentuating the fact that Russia is a separate civilization. We had these types of speculations or some hints, some curtains coming from the Russian side, but now it was done unequivocally. Russia is a separate civilizational unit that shouldn't be identified with Europe. That's for the beginning. The second is that it is combined with a quite modern criticism of Russia toward the West, which reinvigorates all the traditional cliché of Russian perception, including this famous dictum about the rotten West. The second element that Russians intended to highlight the fact that any civilizational center has a legitimate right to be surrounded by its political clients, its political henchmen, in this case post-Soviet states. The third element which is worthy mentioning, it is this enormous proclivity of the Kremlin toward the notion of sovereignty. And in the Russian perception, there are a few countries which are sovereign in the genuine manner. Genuine means very, very often old-fashioned 19th century understanding what is sovereignty. For Russians who seems to preponderate in enjoying these full-fledged rights of sovereignty, it was and it is United States. And any time it is a Russian inclination to juxtapose how we Russians look vis-à-vis the demeanor and the political activity of United States, especially these type of acts like Kosovo, like Iraq, like Libya. And finally, we may say that these new elements has led to worsening of the Russian policy towards all these, say, henchmen around Russia, which were expected, which had been viewed as those who had pledged allegiance to Russia and after that betrayed some basic solidarity to Russia. So we have been eyewitnessing a downward tendency just for the recent years, starting probably from Munich conference in 2007. But even if it is due from the Polish perspective, we see some positive elements. We may say that Putin and his team, that they were, say, maneuvering or say swinging between different options, and there was a period when we deemed them to be more, we would say, inclined toward modernization. But now it seems to be more than correct if we say that Russia has said farewell to modernization. The modernization of the way that we understand. It is coming back to the politics of the concept of power, of the demeanor of the great actors of the international scene. We've got very fuzzy situation in Ukraine, and it is difficult to prejudge what may happen. It is a flux situation, and if anybody may ask you of the prognosis, I feel harmless against this challenge. Just I may simply say that as to prognosis, I remember that there are three types of prognosis. Prognosis which are correct, prognosis which are wrong, and prognosis which are scientific. I hope that just my contribution was a scientific one. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Desde luego el problema queda sin resolver, pero creo que después de oír a todos deberíamos también saber no solo un anticipo de lo que podría pasar en Rusia, sino de lo que la Unión Europea debería hacer en relación a Rusia. Pero gracias por una explicación, yo creo que muy pertinente sobre la visión que hay desde Rusia y desde el este de la Unión Europea sobre la situación. Pero ahora vamos a ver la visión que hay desde el sur oeste de la Unión Europea, que se nos es un poco diferente.
Muchas gracias Cristina, y muchas gracias Borja Lasheras por traernos hoy aquí, que ha sido una muy buena ocasión. Y yo creo que al final no son tan diferentes, acercamos la posición de la Unión Europea y la ventaja de la Unión Europea es que es variada en su formación de decisión, toma de decisiones, yo creo que nos aúna a todos. Si no te importa Cristina, yo que pensaba hacer la intervención en inglés, entonces por la cortesía también de nuestro amigo polaco que nos acompaña hoy aquí, que es mi colega como director político. I will switch to English, and I was finding myself that the last time I was in this room was just before Viilup. We had a meeting organized by the Embassy of Lithuania, and we had a very fruitful discussion about what we were expecting from Viilup. And there were some good ideas and some things that I think has been close to what we thought, and of course others which are not. But if I look at this from the Spanish point of view, I must say that my impression is that, of course, what happened is not what we planned that was going to happen. There have been a lot of evolution that we are, of course, not happy with. But I think, or at least this is my impression, that the diagnosis of the situation that we had at this time is still the same as the one we have today, and I would like to explain why. First of all, for us it's important, perhaps I will be going a little bit more on the general side, because I think Jarosław has made a very clear statement on the situation in Ukraine, and it's of course a situation that he knows much better than I do, coming from Poland, which of course is closer to Ukraine than Spain. But I will go a little bit more general, and my first comment will be going in what we are speaking about, the Eastern Partnership, which is what we are discussing today here. It's part of the policy of the EU. It's part of the neighbourhood policy, and it's related to the legal basis of this neighbourhood policy is the Article 8, which is good for us as Europeans always to take into consideration what the treaty says on the policy the EU is doing. And this Article 8, I will read the first part of it. It says, the Union shall develop a special relationship with neighbouring countries, aiming to establish an area of prosperity and good neighbourliness founded on the values of the Union and characterized by close and peaceful relations based on cooperation. This is the basis of this partnership, and this is what we were aiming at Vilnius, and what we are of course still aiming after Vilnius. We really think that the neighbourhood policy as a whole is one of the most articulate efforts of the EU foreign policy. And we think, especially with the partnership, that the offer which was presented to our neighbours in Vilnius was probably the more generous offer that the EU has gone to any part of the neighbourhood. So this was an element that we discussed this day when we were preparing Vilnius, and I think it's still valid today. It is a very generous offer, and because of that we have to look at it. But also, we said that this day during the discussion we had at this time, that at least from the EU point of view, which is not always accepted by other parts, but from the EU point of view, the Eastern Partnership has not been seen as a tool in a geopolitical confrontation between the EU and Russia. This was the idea of the Eastern Partnership, and it's still the idea of the EU on the Eastern Partnership. For us, the Eastern Partnership, and taking there, of course, we are very, very close to what Jarosław was mentioning on the evolution in Ukraine and the option that the citizens of Ukraine have done, was really something which was very much looking at the development of democracy, the rule of law, and these important values for the EU are of course the basis of the Eastern Partnership, and what we are offering to the countries that are our neighbors is to support in their efforts to go to the same path, to the same values and the same models that we have in the EU, and this is still an important element. Another important element of Eastern Partnership, which is still completely valid, is its open door policy. It's a policy that we establish, we say that's what we are aiming for, but of course we leave it open to our neighbors. Taking this element, which I said, they were already part of our thinking of the Eastern Partnership, we can evaluate Viilup summit taking different elements. The first one, as I said, the Eastern Partnership for us is clearly about political and economic association. It's not about integration. This goes in the treaty and another article, which is completely different, and so the aim, at least for all the European countries, was clear. It is an political and economic association. The second element, which was clear also before Viilup, but today is even more clear, is that the Eastern partners, our neighbors in this part of Europe, they are not the same. They have different views, they have different conditions, and we have, the EU has to adapt to these different conditions of each of these countries. And also an element, perhaps today is even more important to remind, is for us the objective was never, and still not, is to tearing apart Russia, these countries apart from Russia. This element was clear. It's true that we have some values that we see that they are not as accepted in Russia, but the objective of the Eastern Partnership was not to put Russia aside, or on the contrary. The idea, and this is why I mentioned the Article 8, we are speaking in this Article 8 about all our neighbors, and Russia is also one of our neighbors. This has always going to be taken into account. The offer that was made before Viilup is still valid for the EU, and we have seen some cases that we have to mention that countries have accepted this offer from the beginning, and who have initialized the association agreement and the CFTA, which is the case of also Georgia and Moldova. They have been in Viilup, they were able to initialize this agreement, and now the European Council has restated again our wish to sign these two agreements, the sooner the better, in case before the end of this commission, which is an objective that is going to be difficult, but I think we are all of us determined to do so. We have other cases which are completely different. We have Azerbaijan, which have decided not to have this association agreement. They have not said that they will not be part of this neighborhood policy, but they think they have to have a different relation, because for them it's also important the relation they have with Russia. They are part of the customs union, and of course we will see how we will be adapting to this situation, which is one of the challenges that the EU has. We have the case of Armenia, which we thought was before Viilup that it was going to be close to the other cases, that they were going to initialize the agreement, and at the end they communicated that they could not. Probably now we understand even better when we see the situation in Ukraine. Probably we know because of the pressure from Russia. So in this case, it's a case of this. And we have the last one, apart from Ukraine, we have the case of Belarus, but also we insist from the point of view, the offer is also valid for Belarus, but of course the transition of democracy that they have to do is much more important in that case, because the situation of the area is of course much. So if I try to be brief, perhaps the three lessons that at least from the Spanish point of view we take from Viilup and from the preparation, because also in the EU is also good from time to time to reflect why things have happened the way they have happened, and try to correct the things. The first lesson for us is that it is not a good element to rush. We try to go further than what the situation of the countries they have at the moment. We saw this in the case of Ukraine, but all of us thought that the main discussion that was in front of the table was the case of Timoshenko, that it was really the only element that once we were able to solve this question, everything was going to be easy with Ukraine. We have seen the situation that the real problems were much more than the one of Timoshenko. So in this case it's important and therefore the second lesson that I will take into account is that we have really managed the relation with third parties. In this case, the third party is a third party, which of course is Russia. But I think it's important. We have the word discussion before the Vilnius, but I think even more perhaps today, Spain and other countries will always have said that we have not to forget that Russia is an important neighbor of the EU. And is in the interest, first of all, of the EU, interest, and also in the interest of Russia to have good relations with other neighbors. In our case, it is involved in Russia, in the case of Russia, it was involved in Ukraine and the other. So this element is something we have to do. I've heard in the last days, because the day before the news were not good at all, just on the opposite. We have the case of Crimea, that we have more or less condemned, we have the high sanctions because of the path. Even with this, I think the European Council has been wise enough to insist that the line of negotiation, the line of discussion has to be still open with Russia. Coming here, I saw some of the news from the paper saying that it seems that during the time they were being in The Hague, the Russian Minister of meeting the Minister of Ukraine. If this is going to happen, is that news? Because at least my colleague says no, supporting the information that we, but of course for us it's important that they start to have this discussion in Russia and Ukraine, and for us, of course, Ukraine is one of these. And the third lesson, of course, is to support all these countries which are making this option of having a good relation with the EU. This, of course, is the case of Moldova, the case of Georgia, and the way also the relation with Azerbaijan and with the others. And in the case of Ukraine, it's even more important. I think that we are completely on the same line that Poland and the others, that we have to do all our best to support this country. But the best support we can do to these countries from the EU point of view is to insist that this support that we're giving to them, all the support that we always give to another partner, is conditional. It's conditional, but the conditionality is on the reform they are running. We really think that the reforms that we are proposing to Ukraine and to the other Eastern Partnership countries are important. They are mainly beneficial for these countries themselves. So there, we think that we have to be pushing for this necessity of European integration, and of course, we will not be honest and the necessity to be as close as possible. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, por este repaso a lo que está significando la política de la Unión Europea, también desde España y de que estamos haciendo. Vamos a ver ahora cómo se ve desde Elina, por favor.
It's a pleasure to be here. I will try to first present some of my lessons learned from the conflict that we have been proceeding over the last couple of months, as well as some of what I think would be possible solutions, of course. First of all, what we see now, when we look at the Eastern Neighbourhood, is a very tense and serious situation. The Russian Federation has completed the annexation of Crimea as the last place has been overtaken. We do not know how far Russia will go next. So the big question is, what will Putin do next? Although the EU may not want to add political confrontation between Russia and the West, the geopolitical confrontation is already there. We want to keep it. Some of the first and very preliminary lessons learned from what has been happening over the last months. First of all, I believe that the EU does not understand its own power. It massively overestimated its attractiveness for the Ukrainian authoritarian elites in the run-up to the Vilnius summit. But it also, at the same time, underestimated the attractiveness of its not a rule-based democracy for the Ukrainians. With doing that, it gave Russia the impression that it didn't care enough about Ukraine. It didn't put it actually in hands. Secondly, Russia has never and will see the partnership as a win-win West. It can present it as nicely as it wants, and in the most persuasive terms, for it is a competitive policy for the zone that it considers its zone of influence. And as I said, that is the way our important partner sees it. Also, I believe that we have now learned that this Putin's Russia, and Erdogan, Putin's Russia, won't go away if we close our eyes and be quiet. A peace in Russia does not necessarily give the results that we want to achieve. It won't make Russians be nice in return. Quite the contrary, they may not respect us, or they may do whatever they will, or they would have done in the first place anyway. Russia, what we have also seen in case of the reaction of the EU to the crisis is exactly what we said already about the EU's reaction to the Arab Spring. I could be reading my own papers from a year ago, or from a couple of years ago. The crisis made the limits and weaknesses of EU foreign policy became clear as the crisis evolved. EU's response was delayed, it was weak, and we could see the difficulty in achieving a coherent stance among the member states. As the events unfolded, we could see that the EU was trying to put out fires in its neighbourhood, and that the EU's foreign policy machinery is not adapt for this task. The EU needs a foreign policy which provides it with the capacity of analysis as well as the tools to react to a wide range of challenges. Also, I think what we have learned is that the aims of the European neighbourhood policy of building a ring of secure, prosperous and stable countries around the European Union are still very much valid. However, the EU's neighbourhood policy is not the policy to do this task. And finally, EU does, and that is something that the European Council has already realised, is that the EU needs a common energy market and an energy mix. It makes it less dependent on authoritarian regimes, be it Russia or any other country. So what do I think, in my modest capacity, what the EU should do in front of such a huge political puzzle that it faces now? First of all, I think that in the short and medium term, what the EU should do is do everything to help Ukraine. I do not think that sanctions are not necessarily the right way to go. Especially in the short term, they would not have a lot of effect on Russia. Ukraine also needs moral support from the EU, as Ukraine is already losing information war, and Russia is waging against it. However, as Carl Bildt has said in a Swedish foreign minister has said in a recent interview, he said, while sanctions might not work, carrots do. And every carrot that the EU gives to Kiev is a stick for Moscow. The EU should also do everything to help the other Eastern Partnership countries, because it is in its own interest. What is happening in the neighbourhood, and my analysis is that Russia is already losing now. Russia has created an atmosphere of fear from the Baltics, in the whole post-Soviet space, from the Baltics to Afghanistan. And even Russia's closest allies, such as Belarus, are showing first signs of Nazi towards the EU. The EU should be able to welcome these countries towards its own model. The movements sometimes are minuscule, as in the case of Belarus, but I think they are important. Russia may be already losing, but it does not mean that it has already understood that. First thing, that in the medium and long term, what do we need? The European Union needs to start a reflective process for the reform of the EU foreign policy, including a reform of the European security strategy. And if it has agreed on and has gone through the process of identifying its interests, what it is ready to do to protect its interests and where these limits are, then the EU should undertake the reform of the EU policy and this partnership policy.
Sure. I was just thinking on the way here, I was thinking about this quote of Scott Fitzgerald: the best lack all conviction and the worst are full of passionate intensity. And I think it is in this crisis pretty clear who's been exuding passionate intensity, and I mean the perennial incumbent of the Kremlin, whereas we've been lacking conviction. I think this has been a thorn on our sadly. If you agree, I'm going to spell out 6 lessons learned of the current crisis, and I'm going to suggest for your perusal 1 or 2 ideas per lesson learned. Given that, I mean, I think it's too early to draw the scenarios, but I think we can already draw some thinking in the future. First of all, we do not have a policy of recognition of de facto authorities. What I mean with that, I link it to your comment about tug of war. And I think we do have a certain erratic European tendency to empower certain elites over the others, but without clear criteria. And in circumstances of crisis, I understand that foreign policy is an imperfect business and you need to take a decision on the spot. But I think vis-a-vis to the future, I think we could perhaps agree on a certain policy of recognition of de facto authorities. I'm not only thinking about Kiev, I'm thinking about Cairo. So, policy of recognition, don't rush, as Ignacio has pointed out, but don't procrastinate. That's the trouble as well. And don't necessarily follow your partners. We don't want to be just like the Americans cherry picking who should be in power or who should not be in power. So this is the first lesson learned. The second lesson learned, the trap of what I call fast-paced diplomacy or shuttle diplomacy. Great idea to send the 3 ministers on the 21st of February. My humble point is that they should have stayed after the 21st of February, because otherwise, in such fractious and frictious environment, the agreement wouldn't hold. So I know it's easy to speak in hindsight, but vis-a-vis to the future, this is a mistake that, let us be clear, the Americans made as well. It's not exclusively European. I think the contact group diplomacy is a great idea. We need to build on that, but we need to be constant. And ideally, we could think of the Foreign Affairs Council with a High Representative empowering a number of ministers to see to this diplomacy, give it a certain structure. Third, I think the EU is pretty good at multilateral engagement, but it's awfully bad when it comes to field work, mediation on the ground, and managing on the ground political transitions. What is my idea? To work more closely with field-based institutions, and not only think about the OSCE, but your own health submissions on the ground and your capabilities on the ground. I think we do well on the multilateral level, summit level, high-level diplomacy, but you need actually people on the ground to sustain some of these agreements. Fourth, I think it dovetails with Elina's idea. Let's be honest, I think Timothy Gartner's put it brilliantly. We're playing badminton, whereas the other guys are playing boxing, and this is not sustainable. That doesn't mean that we need to play boxing, but perhaps we can play more aggressive badminton, or think more carefully about it. So, and it's so because I mean, you don't need to be an expert. The neighborhood policy, it's a great idea, but it cannot be the exclusive template for foreign policy, particularly, as Ignacio pointed out, given that some of these countries, their elites, are not willing to do that heavy lifting in the first place, let's be honest. So they want Europe, but they don't want, to be too close to Europe to see their shady business, under spotlight. So, soft power, again, following on Elina. I'm positive about soft power, but like I said, in this competition, you need to harness other issues. And I know it's easier said than done, but you need to be also tough with your conditions. And now in order to play geopolitics, we're playing geopolitics late, we're setting the political agreement, but this will require massive transformation in Ukraine. So there are challenges ahead in that regard. So maybe we should find a proper balance. The fifth lessons learned. Let's be honest. It's common wisdom that our most successful European foreign policy tool is enlargement. But in a European Union where the UKIP is pretty much following out on enlargement, etc., the reputational loss for the EU has been massive. So you're selling an option, we call it the nuclear option, not under here, that is pretty much not applicable in the current circumstances. So first you need to hammer a bloody agreement of what is the outlook for enlargement. And with this, I don't only mean Ukraine, I mean Borja. And the 6 lessons learned, maybe we should be, be more cognizant of the fact that sometimes we cannot have both geopolitical might and normative transformation. Maybe at some point there are trade-offs involved, and maybe we need to be a bit selective in that regard. I know it's very provocative, but I'm afraid that at this point we're playing none of the games. So, this regarding lessons learned, but I think it's also good to put these lessons learned in perspective. We've moved, let's be honest, from talking about challenges in the East, now challenges from the East. You were talking about the Russian henchmen and the spheres of influence. I'm thinking about the Russian hitmen. This is about land grabbing. This is not even Russian henchmen anymore. This is about, carving out territories from other sovereign states. So I'm afraid, whether we like it or not, the equation has changed. And I think perhaps we need to change our thinking. Because for all the talk about security interests, I think this is a serious attempt at triggering a new power balance in Europe and unraveling the European security arrangements. So there's a lot of talk about the Cold War, the Inter-Cold War. Honestly, I have no clue. I think what we're witnessing is clearly heightened geopolitical power competition. Concert of powers is a reference, but the guy is talking about the 10th century. I mean, it's even before. So I don't know where we are, but clearly we don't speak the same language. So it also puts on the table, in my view, the question of security guarantees in Europe, because Russia has been persistently trying to renegotiate the European security architecture, and there have been some ideas, as you well know, on the table. But the problem is, as much as they talk about security guarantees, they've been obliterating the one security guarantee of a country that decided to go nuclear free. The message that it sends to European security it's bigger. So we're trying to build trust and confidence, but the other party in the game is obliterating trust and confidence. So for the crisis at stake, I think everything has been said already. You need to de-escalate, and you need to de-escalate by sending international, flooding the place with monitors, including, I think, in weak spots in the post-Soviet space. Moldova is a case in point. But also, and here I have a humble disagreement with Elina, you need to, even though in the short-term sanctions will not change the political calculation, you need to, if only to uphold a principle, you need to slap sanctions, and we can discuss whether targeted sanctions, etc. But otherwise, the message it says is that free riding is permissible and nothing will be prohibited. I have no doubt what the Japanese are thinking right now about the issue. So, but that doesn't detract from the fact that we need a third goal, which is restoring political, constitutional, and economic normalcy in Ukraine. And for that, we need to be as insistent on the security sphere as in the transformative sphere. We need to be demanding with the new authorities in Kiev, and they need to go to polls and be elected through the ordinary process. So to conclude, I was just thinking that 2 months ago we gathered here to talk about global strategy, and my concluding remarks that Europe lacks a catalyzing factor, an antagonist. I was only thinking of Sarah Palin or the likes, but I really would think it would be a pity that Russia becomes once again an antagonizing factor, because honestly, we have way more important business on the table, and I'm talking about the challenges coming out south and the people to Asia. This is where our future lies. So we are torn between unfinished business and upcoming business. So don't give the guy what he wants. Follow a coherent strategy, but let's forget about Cold War. That's it. Thank you.
We may change also English for the sake of the discussion. Thank you, Borja. It's been very interesting, quite controversial too. But I still, if I see myself as a normal citizen, not as an EU person here, I still wonder what the EU should have done, because quite reluctant to give Europe to Ukraine. There was Putin ready to give them. He was ready. He said he would do it. And that's one of the reasons why Ukraine negotiated completely. I mean, of course, there were many others, but that was one of the reasons. That was based on our conditionality, because we wanted Ukraine to guarantee a certain number of reforms and so on. So it's, I think you said before, Elina, it was like a movie with over the scene. While we were expecting conditionality to happen, or we were trying to apply events for much faster. So it's, yeah, we have to be reflexive, but at the same time we have to be reactive. So how can we balance? One of the key issues here is, and this is very human, as you said, is personalities. And it's all this build of characters and traditions and what we want. And as you were very well mentioned, Russia which was in this interpretation working movement and yet has forgotten. So what can we do today? What can we do to face this new Russia? Are we really ready to do what we should be doing? Are we to use the sanctions issue? Because I think we all agree that these sanctions are not enough to stop clear or to really be effective. So maybe this is something. Sorry, I took over the opportunity of being here.
Thank you for these quite intellectually pitched questions. I should dwell on 4 issues, I think, which are of my perception, which are of the first, just as to the Eastern Partnership, I believe that it should be somehow considered as a twofold, it has 2 dimensions. The first one is Ukraine itself, and I believe it's, well, we have to realize that the country now requires not assistance, it should be rescued. It is on the brink of the total collapse, of the disaggregation, and for Russians it will be the excellent pretext to say, you see, we warned you, we had warned you during the Bucharest summit that the country didn't exist as such, that it was a patchwork. And now it was totally testified by all these license, disarray, mayhems on the streets of the Eastern and Southern Ukraine. So first, I believe that we need a package of which would rescue the basic coherence of the state. Otherwise, it will be enormously disadvantageous, to put it very mildly. It will be very perilous, not only for the European, for Russia herself as well. It will have this element of it will be a kind of the trigger for the very similar processes, I would say perverting processes. Russians are very keen to figure point to the cost, but they, I would say, they have reinvigorated this tendency. I do not intend to describe the Kosovo, but still in Poland we have some, well, say, contradiction. There is a kind of repugnance in our perception. So for the beginning, to react a message, rescue Ukraine. The second, this issue of constant presence, again we feel that I am very eager to borrow your term of this catalyst. You can't be constantly present. Moreover, maybe it was a blunder to leave too early Kiev, the ministers have been after the very prolonged marathon, with a sleepless night from 20 to 21st. It was enormously exhausting. Moreover, both parties seem to be more or less equal. On the one hand, this enthusiasm and the potentialities of the Maidan, and the sense that they have a grip on what is right, but on the other hand, Yanukovych was still well armed. He has all the assets just all the structures which were bolstering up the state. The fact that he, and I'm not afraid to utter this word, that he ratted the, I would say, the board of the ship. Being a captain, he was the first to flee. It was the beginning of the total stampede. Just all became panicked. And just after that we saw this, I would say, miraculous Deus ex machina disaggregation of the system of our. Sorry, it was there. We just in Madrid, in the east, we have this. The very wide margin of unpredictability. Enlargement, I believe, we just totally it's really premature. It's very, very premature. Ignacio will just inquired me very solidly. So just we have that. And the last part, I believe we need to continue this pitching in growing Moldova and Georgia. They should be rewarded for their loyalty, their determination, their diligence, their just scrupulous fulfilling of all the obligations. They really merit all these, I would say, reimbursement, this rewarding from our side, and just along with the Morocco, I believe that these are excellent headbridges for you, just for this neighborhood. In this context, I would dare to say that Ukraine, and maybe to some extent, I don't know whether it is an apt observation, but both Egypt and Ukraine should be viewed not strictly within the frameworks of the neighborhood policy. I would say they escalate, the problems escalate over or beyond these quite formalistic. It requires additional political engagement. That's all. Thank you.
Three short comments. The first one, which is one of the good things is that we always tend to say that we are quite bad, we react slowly, and I think it's good. This is one of the good things to the Europeans. But I think also from time to time we have to look at the things in a bit bigger perspective. And I will put an example for our country, which is not the Eastern Partnership, that it goes perfectly well for the Eastern and for the Mediterranean Partnership. It's the case of Tunisia. In Tunisia we had a revolution. The person in the power, which was of course very much protested by its own population, and I think from what it was on the other side, we had very difficult times to work with Europeans, especially with the one who are closer to Tunis even more than the others, very much concerned about the evolution in the country because of the Islamists and this and that. The European was there from the first day. We were trying to do things in a different way, perhaps slowly as we used to do things, but I think with a clear idea of what we wanted to reach. We had Lady Ashton designated Bernardino Leon as her representative in the area. He was working there, through Italy with a different result, in the case of Tunisia, with very good result. And now Tunisia has a constitution which I think none of us would have ever believed that it was going to be in the side. It's a very normal and very respected constitution. They will have a transitional government that they all work with. They will have elections to choose. So these things, I think, and the thing that Europe was close to Tunisia, and we were trying to help them and support and show was a good example. So I think that sometimes we forget the good examples, and of course it's normal because we concentrate on the things which are not working out. So I think the neighborhood policy works. Of course, it's a different way than other policies. It's clear that there are incentives, and incentives. I think that the population in different countries, I think the partnership is quite clear. It works. We have, and usually in Europe, at least in Brussels, they used to see Poland and Spain as countries which are very the east, and Spain to the Mediterranean. And in fact, we had a very strong cooperation, and like the position of the other mentioned, one case that we have done, and we have now to do the second part. We decided, because we think really that the two of us, that neighborhood policy is a very important policy, we decided to show this in the countries, in the eastern countries and also in the Mediterranean countries. I was invited by Poland through their embassy in Georgia, and we went together, the political director of Poland, the political director of Spain, went to Georgia, and we expressed to them, to the Georgians, not only to the government, but also to the opposition, because we had meeting with the opposition, to the civil society. We expressed the fact that Europe is with them, and Europe being with them means a lot. I really think that the visit we did in Georgia was very successful in this way. We are going to do the same thing in the Mediterranean, as we have chosen from the Spanish part of Tunisia, because the reasons I have said to you before, and of course we will go the two political directors of Tunisia with the same idea. So I think there are some things that Europe we can do as bad as we used to do. Of course, there are others in which we have to improve and we recognize. There was one question on sanctions. I think the sanctions, if you apply them with an objective, the sanction itself is not the objective. The objective is to change the behavior. They work. I mean, we see the case and all the caveat that we can in the case of Iran. Iran was out of the table of negotiation for some years. It was very costly for all the countries, and Spain was one of these countries because we were importing a big part of our oil from Iran. We decided that we need to have sanctions. We decided all of us together that it was an important decision, and we had to apply. We applied all of us, and now Iran is back to the table. Of course, there are other elements in the fact. It's not so easy as sanction can be solved. But the sanction happens. The thing you see the result of the election in Iran, we understand that the sanction happens. So I think in the case of Russia, if we are able to fix the sanction in the good way, and for the moment we are doing so, we may be able to see the situation. At least we have Russia again in the table, which is for us at least an outcome, and I think to some example. And the third element, of course, I have to mention energy. Elina has mentioned this very clearly, and of course we agree completely with that, and it was one of the discussion in the European Council recently. We had a discussion on also the Foreign Affairs Council, also a discussion in Ukraine, and after during the lunch we had the Commissioner Oettinger speaking about the energy, because of course things are very much needed. And one of the elements that we have been supporting with ourselves, but also with the Baltic countries, we were being very far as we are, and this line we are very close because we have the same idea, insisting on the importance of the connectivity of the internal marketing inside the EU. It does not make sense to have all this concentration with Russia, not only because Russia is a dictatorship, but only because it's not wise. I mean, you have your energy supplies concentrated in an area. We have, in the case of Spain, we are bringing our gas mainly from Algeria. It makes no sense that this gas can go from Algeria to Spain, from Spain to the north of Europe. It does not make sense, and this, I think, there are a lot of things we have to do. So I think slowly we are doing things better, but of course I agree with you that we have to see things in a wider perspective, and energy is of course part of this foreign policy that we have to define better.
Ignacio, you want to add something? I was oversimplifying, of course, before as well. I tried to make 7 lessons, and it's very hard to make 7 lessons out of such a complex situation. I do agree with what has been said before. I still continue to think that use soft power is important, and that can be evidenced in the events of Ukraine. However, use soft power will not amount to much if it is not backed up with hard power. And that's what Borja said, is that we can be really good at badminton, but it doesn't matter if the others are boxing. And in case of Russia, we can be postmodern in the way we understand conflicts and the way we understand geopolitics, but clearly the way Russia is acting now, clearly it doesn't understand the world in our way. For me, the way out of it is I think European neighbourhood policy is a good thing. I was trying to show some of its flaws. I think it is good for what I think that it is good for what it is designed to do, bring about administrative reform, and to make sure that there's harmonization with the EU rules and EU legislation. However, in the current form, the way neighbourhood policy has been built up as enlargement light, it cannot serve to avoid conflicts. It cannot serve to. It's not even providing enough incentives for the countries to reform themselves, because it ultimately does not have what the neighbours want in these, and they want membership, and that remains. We can close our eyes to it, but that's the truth. What we should do, I think, is what I was trying to suggest in a very clumsy way, is to really enter into a reflective process and think, what do we want from our neighbourhoods? What our policy should be like for our neighbourhoods? What we're actually ready to, what our objectives are in our neighbourhoods? How are we actually honestly ready to back up these policies? What our responses could be like, what kind of resources we do have to respond to challenges, and that is the kind of exercise I think that is quite relevant in 2014. We have already 11 years has passed from the first European security strategy, so I think it is high time to look at the European security strategy again.
Yeah, I'll be fairly short. This template of Polish-Spanish cooperation for European affairs is something that we are generally advocating for the European Council on Foreign Relations, and I'm happy that I don't need to write a memo on that, so you're doing that already and we can move on. So thanks for that. I'll be very brief. I agree with Ignacio's assessment that we shouldn't rush. My impression is with Ukraine, we precipitated in a way the situation. We put the country in a dichotomy it was not willing to accept in the first place. Welcome safe, but maybe tactics should have been different. But like I said, I'm mindful that foreign policy is a very perfect business, so maybe we can draw the lessons learned in that regard. More questions?
Okay. Anyone has any questions?
Thank you very much. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Bernardo Navarro. I am the defense coordinator at Fundación Alternativas. I write on defense and international affairs issues. And sometimes when I try to make this kind of analysis regarding the situation in Russia or the situation in international relations and any other crisis, I try to portray myself as a third-party analyst that is studying this from a different country. And normally I ask the question, if I am a great power, a declining great power that has 140 million people, that is losing population, that is feeling threatening by defense community, and I see a neighboring country or a neighboring rival that is offering an association agreement, that it looks like a trade and investment agreement in the surface, but after reading that, you see that there is a tendency to converge in foreign policy issues and defense issues, and I am a great power. How do I feel? And I guess I would feel threatened. I would feel that I am being shaped. I would feel that I have to respond, and I have to respond aggressively by grabbing land, by solving my national interest. My national interest is Crimea, and that's something I cannot give away. Even if the other party is telling me that my intention is not to tear these countries apart from Russia, or that it is myself is acting aggressively. I could see that the other party is doing so. And I guess I always try to look at problems in that way, and I would say that by the European Union, by rushing into offering the same kind of agreement to Moldova and Georgia, no matter what we say about ourselves and about our intentions, is going to be perceived as a threat and as an aggressive action by Russia, and I don't see that as a way of de-escalating the crisis. That was my take. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Carlos Uriarte y soy presidente de los Jóvenes para Europa en España. Mi pregunta sería, en el último Consejo Europeo también se ha hablado de que se van a establecer una serie de sanciones contra Rusia, pero que la Comisión Europea iba a realizar un estudio para saber qué tipo de sanciones podrían ser, sobre quiénes podrían ser y un poco el tipo de alcance de esas sanciones, para conocer el impacto que podrían tener no solamente en la economía rusa, sino también en la economía de los países de la Unión Europea. ¿Se sabe ese estudio cuándo estará hecho y si también, bueno, qué tipo de medidas se podrán tomar? Porque estamos hablando de tiempo y a lo mejor el estudio no está preparado hasta dentro de un mes y a lo mejor los países de la Unión Europea no se ponen de acuerdo hasta dentro de un mes y medio o dos y nos hemos metido prácticamente ya en las elecciones con una Comisión Europea que estará en funciones y con un Parlamento Europeo que no estará operativo. Entonces me gustaría saber si de una vez por todas el soft power de la Unión Europea podrá ser efectivo o realmente pues solamente será una teoría. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to answer briefly each of you and also to add any concluding remarks because we have to finish. There's another event.
Add something.
Okay, sure.
I'm a master of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I have to say something. I'm a neighboring country, and I want to know. I'm just. It's out of. Perhaps we are not on the agenda, but I want to know the position of whether for Bosnia and Herzegovina there is some kind of tailor-made new agenda because we are paying collateral damage for Kosovo, and I hate comparison and I hate everything, but we need also some perspective to put SSA in force or some other dialogue to be revived. That's the only easy question.
Thank you.
Maybe something.
Okay. We have 5 more minutes.
Yeah. Just because you mentioned that there is a short time and maybe it's better a short comment also from my side. First of all, I think that we made, it's very good that we start now analyzing it, looking for lessons learned, but I think that it's clear that we made at least 3 tactical mistakes that could be strategic mistakes. First one, in my view, was to put Ukraine between the dilemma of European Union or Russia. Second one was the quick reaction accepting the new government in Ukraine. And the third one, to isolate Russia. For a long time, I think that this is the first time that in this room there is no people from the Russian embassy. And finally, regarding sanctions, it's not the same sanctions to one country, a normal country, that sanctions to Russia. And we need to think about the consequences if Russia takes some measures also. And I don't like to mention, because it will be very, very long, the consequences for Spain and our interests regarding Russian relations. Thank you.
I think Russia and Hungary is another standing that post and you're just for Russia. So anyway, let's take your answers and your concluding remarks.
Very shortly, I just say that I totally agree that whatever we do in this neighborhood, Russia will perceive it as a competing policy. It will not perceive it as a win-win situation. But I think that it does not justify Russia's actions. Russia is bound by international law like all the other states in the world, and it has committed itself to certain international norms. Grabbing land territory is not one of these actions. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to take that question. Bernardo, always a pleasure to listen to you. I think also dovetails with your question. I don't know, but the Russian soldiers or militiamen, they don't seem to be very, very scared in Crimea, rather on the contrary. It is true that there's a threat perception. It's always been there, and it's gained momentum, and there's a lot of talk about the double stance of the West. But it's not only what is at stake here, it's an attempt to move from threat perception towards a power reset, and this is what they're trying. So it's not only about threat perception, it's about encroaching, and it's an expanding agenda. This is where the change of equation takes place. I agree with you that there are trade-offs, and no one wants to isolate Russia, but I mean, no one wanted to isolate Iran either. But at some point, there are two or three basic principles we need to agree on. And if we're not willing to stand up to them, let's close the business and let's go home. That's my simple thought. Thank you.
Well, it's Russia as a former empire. Not just if you meet Russian, average Russian, the first question that he asks you, just immediately from the very outset, do you respect me? But he knows that he's not respected. He's dirty, he's drunk, and will just misbehave. I believe that the problem is that we always didn't have stomach for this idea of the special rights, of the droit de regard pour Russia. We believe that we may agree within the European family as to the diagnosis what is the problem with Russia. And it is exactly this post-imperial syndrome, this heritage that, say, perverts Russia. Immediately there are elements of divergence if we come to the treatment. How to alleviate, how to mitigate all these problems in Russia. We believe that in this respect, sometimes tougher measures are better for curing the problem. We are afraid that the appeasement, that walking on tiptoe on these basic issues, it may further demoralize Russians. By saying, listen, comrades, it works, if we are blatant, if we are impudent, it works. So the issue is that I believe that there are Russians, no doubt, there are Russians amongst the elite who do understand that Russia has been drifting to the cul-de-sac situation with this totally extensive type of economy, this one-dimensional economy that pretends that is a global power. And this, I would say, curse of energy, which was showcased in numerous Middle East countries. For example, which is the Iraq, which is very opulent, basically very opulent country that has squandered under the leadership of Saddam Hussein, which is all these, which is great assets. So we have to say, Russia, that this demeanor, which was typical from Jurassic Park, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I believe that it is also now. It's a problem that they are possessed with with our own rhetoric, and they are galloping with this. I would say self-portrayal as another great, really sovereign country, somewhere I would say to the historical morass, to the historical quagmire. And as to sanctions, again, which is if we contravene the idea that anybody should have special rights, which is sanctions should be used according to some logic. But I believe that sanctions are more important as a symbol. It's a symbol of our disavowal. But what seems to be of the foremost importance in this context, that Russia, and allow me to refer to the.
Borja, esta zona tiene que estar alejada. Hay que evitarla, hay que ver
No. punished herself just by I would say by during all these all these basic liaisons with the I would say with the economy, withdrawal of the Western capital. The fact that Russia will be considered as a flashpoint that is not conducive for the great business. I am almost sure that we shall see this massive escape of business from Russia. It will be the greatest detriment for them.
15 segundos y en este caso lo haré en español, pero lo más rápido. Solo agradeceros a todos vosotros, ha sido una discusión muy interesante, porque estamos en la línea. Quizás solo los sistemas de sanciones, yo creo que se estrenaron en las conclusiones del Consejo Europeo, se ha cogido un sistema limitado de personas a las sanciones de viajes y de operación de haberes. La Unión Europea ha sido muy rápida, porque hemos conseguido ponernos de acuerdo a 28 sobre un número limitado de personas, y a lo que se refería la pregunta es a la nueva fase en el caso de que las cosas se deterioren, y muy especialmente que haya mayores amenazas en el caso de Ucrania. La Unión Europea está lista y se pide a la Comisión justamente para que haya un equipo que empiece a trabajar desde ahora sobre ese escenario, que evidentemente no queremos. Es una pena que Rusia no esté hoy, pero vamos a decirles que todos nosotros, viendo como Ucrania, seguimos discutiendo con Rusia todos los días, insistiendo en la misma línea, que es necesario que vuelva a la mesa donde estamos todos y donde ellos no les conviene. Yo sí que creo que las sanciones son aplicables, y yo sí que creo que es interés de Rusia llegar a algunos entendimientos. En ese sentido, yo estoy de acuerdo que la mejor opción de Rusia no es la que está escogiendo, sino al contrario, la mejor opción es una opción de diálogo con la Unión Europea. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, muchas gracias a todos. Si lo tengamos que salir corriendo, pero ha sido un placer y hasta la próxima.